Hey, welcome back to the channel where we dig deep into the world of creative AI, things like AI art, AI animation, voice cloning, and all that other nefarious stuff. So right now I'm in the middle of a big creative project. It's really just for me to test my own skills and try new things. I'm inspired blatantly by what other people have already done. But I'm always on a nonstop quest to eliminate the need to pay subscription fees whenever possible. There are certainly tools in this workflow that I do pay for, but wherever I can, I try to avoid having to pay for subscriptions and get the technology on my local system when I can. Now, of course, a lot of these things require beefy computers that not everybody has, so I will always try to do a better job on this channel of saying what the requirements are for various things if I can tell you that information. So today we're going to be working with several different programs to show you various techniques. This isn't necessarily the most streamlined way to do this particular project, but it is an opportunity for me to show you in practice some of the things I've done videos on lately and are trending in the AI space right now. So I'm going to be using some tools when I could probably do several things in one of them. But today I'm going to be using Fooocus to create the base images that we're going to animate. And then we're going to use ComfyUI and Stable Diffusion video to animate those images. Then we're going to do some face swapping within those images to add more detail to the faces and make them look specifically how we want to. Then we'll be adding a voice to the video using 11 Labs speech-to-speech feature, not the text-to-speech feature. And then we're going to take that audio and create an animation of the lips moving on that character. So we have a completely animated scene with talking and lip movement. So let's just get started. I'm going to be sharing several tools with you during the course of this video, but this isn't designed to be a tutorial on any one of those particular tools, but how I'm using them in my own workflow. I've got other videos that dig deeper into most of these subjects, and there are certainly others out there on the internet that go way deeper into some of these tools than I will here. I'm simply showing you how I use these tools and these workflows to create this result, and maybe you'll find something in there that is useful for you. So Wes Anderson is a film director that has a very specific look and kind of a color palette to the work that he does. And so I've seen several other people do parody movie trailers based on his style, like Star Wars and Harry Potter, and I just want to do something like that, just to see if I can do it. So much of the work I do here is just to see if I can do it. The origin of this project is that just as an experiment, I started creating some images in the Wes Anderson style. And then I said, well, that's interesting. Let me drag them into ComfyUI and animate these things and see what happens. And before I knew it, I had a couple of dozen of these animations. And I'm like, I got to do something with this. What if I could figure out a way to put these all together in a storyline and bring it to life with animation, music, cloned voices, and the whole thing? So let me show you how I'm doing the various pieces. So we're going to start in Fooocus. Fooocus is a text-to-image generator, and we could very easily do this in ComfyUI as part of the workflow to animate the image. I could create the image in ComfyUI and just send it right on into the animation process. But again, I want to show you some of the ways that you can use various tools so that maybe you can use these techniques in your workflow. And there are some advantages right now to doing it in Fooocus rather than ComfyUI, but that's mostly because of my current knowledge level of ComfyUI. But it's still a good opportunity to show you some stuff. So let's just create a sample image that we would do for this project. The first thing we want to do is get our model set up and the dimensions and all of our pre-settings before we start generating images. Now you can use any model you want. In my case, I'm going to choose by clicking the advanced button down here first and then clicking on model. I have installed the Realistic Vision version 2.0. Now this is something you can get over at the Civit AI site, which I will put a link to. You just download this model, put it in your models folder for your Fooocus installation, and then it will show up on the drop-down list. I don't do anything here with the LoRa's. I'm going to go over here to setting, and I want to choose an aspect ratio that's similar to 16:9, and in this case, I'm going to use the 5:3 aspect ratio, which is 1280 by 768. And I'm going to leave the performance at speed. And over on the Style tab, I'm going to unclick where it says Fooocus 2. That's their own spin on how they process these things. And I want to have a little bit more control because if it doesn't look the way I'm wanting it to, there's all these variables here that could be affecting it. I'm going to go ahead and leave the enhance and the sharp there, though. Let's just start with a super simple prompt to start going for the look I want. And we'll just say Natalie Portman sitting in a coffee shop holding hot coffee. Wes Anderson style. Click generate, see what we get. Okay, so these are fairly close, this one in particular, and there's several ways we can go about tweaking this. First of all, of course, would be the prompt. Let's say we wanted the colors to pop a little bit more, so maybe I say very vivid colors, high contrast, And even go over here to where it says Wes Anderson style, select that and hit the Control up arrow a couple of times to really say, no, I really want Wes Anderson style, and click generate and see what we get. I think the contrast is a little bit better, the colors are a little bit better, but aside from tweaking the prompt, there's a quicker and easier way to get an overall style put onto this, which we've talked about in other videos, and that's using the input image feature in Fooocus. So we're going to click input image, and then we're going to make sure to click the image prompt tab, and then we want to find a reference image that demonstrates the style that we're looking for, that will be impressed upon the image that we're doing. So in this case, we want something that's in the Wes Anderson style. And I found that going over to Pinterest and doing a search on Wes Anderson revealed some pretty good collections of Wes Anderson style images. So let's choose one with a very different color palette than what we've got here. Okay, just for an example so you can see the impact that it has. We'll choose this one here, and what I do is I just hold my mouse down over the image and literally drag it over the Fooocus tab and then drop it into that space down there for the image prompt. All right, and then I change nothing else, and then I click generate. And you can see already that the color palette has been affected. We've got the yellow here, we've got the blue here. So there's a quick example of how the style can be affected. Let's find something that's even more exactly what we want. Okay, I like the kooky quirkiness of this one. Just hold that down, drag over the tab, and drop it on top. And hit generate again. So let's see, we've got the light blue jacket now is on her. There is something I want to add to this prompt. I want to say sitting alone. We'll run this again, but before we do, I'm going to click the advanced button down here, and then I'm going to add more weight to this image and just see if we can get just a little bit more of the graphic elements of this into this image. Click generate again. So now we've got the palm tree in there. So I like this. I like both of these actually. I think I'm going to go with this one. And what I'm going to do now is in the ComfyUI interface, which I've already loaded up on another tab, I've got the workflow going that takes a still image and using Stable Diffusion video, turns it into a video. And so this is an example of something I was running before. As you can see, this was the source image here that I created just like I was just doing. This is not what I would finalize on. This is the result I got, and I'm going to show you a little bit how you tweak these results. Now we've got an image here in Fooocus that I want to animate. So again, I'm going to use the same technique just by holding down my mouse button, clicking over here, dragging it over the ComfyUI tab, and dropping it right in here into the source image. Now let's take a quick peek at some of these animation settings. I have learned a little bit more about the animation settings themselves, things like the augmentation level and the CFG scale here, and the impact that those things have on the specific types of motion that happen. Changing the CFG scale can determine whether or not it's going to pan, whether or not it's going to zoom, and that kind of stuff. The same thing with augmentation level, it has an impact, and also the sampler that you use. For example, you could use Euler Ancestral, you could use Euler Regular, you could use any of these things, and you're going to get slightly different results. So about experimentation, that's just part of the game. But here's this, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click Q prompt. Look at that. Okay, so that's just like way too shaky. So I'm going to do a couple of things just to maybe see if I can keep this more still. This is pure experimentation you're seeing here. So I'm going to leave the motion bucket ID at 127. I'll take the augmentation level down to 0, and I will change the sampler to Euler. What's your logic, Bob? I'm just trying stuff, because what I'm finding is a setting that works great for one image may or may not give you a similar result for another one. So it really is a lot of trial and error, because the AI is looking at the image and trying to make sense of it to determine how things should move. And so if the composite's a little bit different, or if there are elements that are supposed to obviously move or something, then it's going to try to do those things. So you just have to play with it. Okay, that's crazy. I don't like that at all. I'm going to take this CFG scale down to 1.6 and the augmentation level to 0.01. And I'm going to choose a normal scheduler for no good reason. I keep getting this zoom effect, so I'm going to try something else. So another great thing about ComfyUI is it remembers the previous batches you've done. So I want to go back and load a batch that I did earlier that was a little bit better, right? So now that I've got these parameters all loaded up, it's exactly how I had it set before. I'm going to take that image again that we just got back. I'm going to drag it in ComfyUI and drop it right there, and I'm going to run this configuration and see what happens. This one did get a little blurred out with the motion, but still I think we can work with it for this example. But look what a great job it did. Obviously this was a still image of this man standing on the beach, and we've got the ocean waves, we got the pan, we got the sunset, we got the whole thing. It's pretty amazing. Chaos. So I'm still not getting the result I want, which is perfect for a demo. So let's go through some of the other histories that I've done here. Those are the ones that aren't working. These are all ones that I've done earlier. Now this one I liked, although that's a pretty heavy zoom. This one, See, this right here, this is the kind of thing I want. So let's see if we can translate these exact settings as they are to the image. So once again, I'm going to go back over here to our history. I'm going to drag it over the ComfyUI tab. I'm going to drop it there on top of Elmo and hit Q prompt and go like this. Now look, there is a science to this, and I will actually link to a video that I was watching this morning that got me started down this road in the first place, messing with those values far into detail. I'm going sort of by memory, and there is still a lot of trial and error here, but watch that video if you want to nail in how the CFG and the augmentation levels change the style of the animation. I love the way this one turned out. I mean, it would have been great if he was opening and closing his mouth or whatever, but the waves and the sunset and how the sky changes and just everything about it, I'm so impressed with this one. There's motion in the leaves. Is that the result? That seems to be the result of that last one. So it's not cooperating with me on any level. All right, I'm taking augmentation level down to 0. I'm taking motion bucket down to 95. CFG down to 1.7. I'm going to put this on Euler and I'm going to hit Q prompt. Now, if you're watching this and you know what I should be doing, for heaven's sake, comment and send us to your video where you explain this, and I will point people to it all day long. Okay, this one still has a slight zoom, but we can use it. So now what we want to do is we want to swap out the face in this video so that it looks even more like the person that it's supposed to look like. So for that, we're going to use Face Fusion. So here's the thing about Face Fusion. It is a really, really good face swapper. The results that you get from one image rival that of what you were getting with some of the best deepfakes out there that required very large models that took forever to train and thousands of images. So what you're getting here is amazing technology. So having said that, there are all sorts of restrictions on this technology, and it's extremely important that you read the terms and conditions on this model, which basically says don't use this for commercial purposes and be a reasonable, decent human being, for heaven's sake. Those aren't the exact words, but use this responsibly. But let's get into this a little bit. When you first load this up, this is what you see. Now, Face Fusion will swap faces in still images and video. We're going to be focusing on the video part, but at least I can give you a demo of it real quick to show you how it works. But first of all, there's a little bit of pre-setup we want to do. So there's different modes that you can do. I'm going to choose Face Swapper because obviously we want to swap the face, but I'm also going to use Face Enhancer, which uses a GAN model to sharpen up teeth and eyes and stuff like that. It's worth doing. It does add some time to the render, but the results are definitely worth it because without it, you get a pretty low res face swap. Still good, but it doesn't always match up the resolution with the rest of the image. So I highly recommend that you use the Face Enhancer and maybe play with the Face Enhancer blend if you think that's too much. I generally like to dial it down to around 53%, somewhere around there. Also, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card and you can run the CUDA environment, you can choose the CUDA here and it will speed things up tremendously. And again, depending on your CPU, you can play with the execution thread count and max memory. If you don't know what any of that is, I would just leave that stuff alone. I happen to know that on my system, I've had no problems with doing an execution thread count, which is basically how busy your CPU is, of around 20 or so, and then max memory of, I don't know, anywhere between 10 and 15. I've got 64 gigs of RAM in my computer, and I'm running an RTX 3090 with 24 gigs of VRAM on it. So plenty of room to play around. And I don't mess with any of this stuff at any point. So the source square up here is where you're going to put the face that you want to swap in. And then the target is what are you going to swap it on? We want to swap out Natalie Portman's face, so let's just find a quick picture, find an image that is representative of the face, of the look of her that we want on this. We want to avoid anything that's like right up on the face. We want to give a little bit of room around it. Let's choose this one here. All I need to do is hold down my mouse, click it over the Face Fusion tab, and drop it in source. Okay, and then let's take our image from Fooocus, that one, and we'll just take this and we'll drop it right into Face Fusion again in the target area, and immediately it's going to start to go to work up here in the upper right hand corner. It's going to find the reference image in the picture, and then it's going to do all the calculations to put this face on it. Now, of course, it already is basically Natalie Portman, but this should clean it up even more and make it look even more like her. If you were to compare the faces, you'll see that this one here is, you can tell who it is, but this is a much better version. Now, this is the preview, so now what we want to do is click Start, and it's actually going to render out the image. And now we've got a nice high resolution image. So, I mean, if you look at them side by side, This was the first pass that AI did, and then this is the one with the face swap in it. Okay, so that's still images. What we want to do is take that video that we made and swap the face out on that. So we'll take that target out and replace it with the video. Okay, so now I've dropped the video in there. Looks just like the image, doesn't it? We're letting it do its magic. Again, this takes a little longer when you have the face enhancement, but it is worth doing. If you want to preview it first, just to see if you're in the ballpark, you can turn off face enhance, see that you're in the ballpark, and then turn it back on to get your final version. What I always do though when I'm working with video is I'm going to move around the preview frames, and just to make sure nothing weird happens. Like this, in the case of these videos, they're so short that there's not that much movement that we don't have to worry too much about the face breaking apart. All the way through, her face is nice and put together, so it really cleaned up sort of the irregularities of the face that when the eyes started breaking during the zoom in, it just got a little soft and mushy. This cleans it right back up. So now I'm going to click on start, and we're going to have a high resolution video of this with a better face on it. Let's pop that up and click play. There you go. See, that's pretty good. Now, even though the jacket gets a little bit fuzzy, we're going to be focused on the face anyway. And you can just chalk it up to art and stylistic choices, right? Now we've got this animation and we want to add voice to it, and then we want to make it talk. So the voice, of course, is going to come from our good friends at 11 Labs, but we are going to use the speech-to-speech feature, which means that I'm going to record my own voice saying something rather than typing something in for the AI to decide how it's going to be said. I get to determine that. Let's do that now. Okay, so inside of 11 Labs, we're going to first choose the voice we want to use for this character. I'm not going to use any sketchy cloned voices for this. We're going to go right to the voice library included with 11 Labs, and we're going to just shop briefly around for a character to use. So I'll go ahead and go to conversational. Obviously, I want a woman, so let's just...
Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of...
Okay, that's good for me. She has a kind of a monotone-ish voice anyway, which fits with the mood of this thing. So I'm going to click on Add to Voice Lab, and then I'm going to go over to Speech Synthesis. I'm going to choose her from the list, Joanne, pensive, introspective, and then I just have to have her say something. Now, in this case, the animation itself is only 2 seconds. We could have done a lot of things to make it a little bit longer, but in this case, the style of this video is going to be cutting to all of these short little animations anyway. So we don't have time for a big long dialogue. These characters are going to be saying 2 or 3 words at the most. To demonstrate the power of the speech-to-speech, I want to be very emotive and have a very specific read to what I say so that you can see how it is duplicated. All right, so I'm going to click on Record Audio, and I'm going to click the microphone, and then I'm going to go. That's totally impossible. Okay, so it's very, very short, but it should fit in there, and it'll give you a demonstration of how it takes my voice and uses that.
That's totally impossible.
See, now that wouldn't have happened just like that if I had just done text to speech. Let's just type it. That's totally impossible. Generate.
That's totally impossible.
So it's still a good read. That's what makes this so great. But this other version just had the inflection even more. That's impossible. Okay, that was a little crazy, but definitely will demonstrate.
That's impossible.
Okay, so great way to clone the voice, but let's have her say something that is normal. Do you know who killed him? Ooh, a twist in the plot. Perfect. All right, so now we've got that. We're going to download that voice, and now we're going to bring that file and the video together. Now, to do that, I got to jump back into my old friend Automatic 1111 so I can run an extension there called Wave to Lip Studio, which allows you to add animated lip movement over an existing video that may or may not be saying something else. In this case, we're going to use that extension to use the audio that we just created to drive the lip movement of the animation we just created. Okay, so here we are in Wave to Lip Studio. So just a brief overview of this interface. We're not going to use all of this stuff, but just to give you an idea. So the video here is where we're going to put the video that we want to have talk. This area is for face swap, so we could actually do a face swap in here. I like seeing the results in Face Fusion first before we go through all this whole process, and I feel like I can do more tweaking in Face Fusion. In any case, you can put a face to swap in here if you would like. If you've got pictures with several faces in it, it says right here, index of face to swap, left face and image is 0. So if there's only one face to swap, then you're only going to put the 0, leave it at default. Here, you can actually generate text using a text-to-speech generator that's built in, but very low quality. The voices sound like this.
There are a lot of things I could talk about, but it would probably sound similar to this.
Yeah, we're going to use the audio that we created, okay? So we would drop that here, and here's a bunch of settings that you don't really have to mess with except for this one here. A lot of this has to do with face swapping and that kind of stuff, which we're not doing. There's 2 choices here for the checkpoint to use for the model to make all this magic happen, Wave to Lip and Wave to Lip GAN. You would think that Wave to Lip GAN would give you better results, but in my experience, I like the Wave to Lip better. So I'm using the GFP GAN face restoration model here. And now all I'm going to do is drop these videos in here. So there's our video with the face swapped. So now I've dropped that 1 second of audio here.
Do you know who killed him?
And that's it. All we have to do now is click generate.
Do you know who killed him?
So there you go, from an image to a talking animated image with tools you can find around the house. The only thing that you have to pay for in that whole scenario is 11 Labs. The rest of it you can bring down on your own computer if you've got the horsepower to do it. So I've got those dozens of clips that I've created. So now all I have to do is write the story around it, put the lip movement to the animations where it makes sense to do that, then put it all together in CapCut or some other editing program and add post effects and music. And then I've got myself a trailer. But that'll be a hot minute before I get that done. But I at least wanted to show some of the elements of the process to you, just in case you were interested in any aspect of this, because this is how we learn, isn't it? If you are enjoying any of this content, you're learning anything, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, because, that's what we do here, right? We like and subscribe if we get value. So, I do. You should see how many things I liked just in the past 24 hours. Seriously, thanks for watching. If you use any of these or if you have better ways to do any of this stuff, I'd love to hear about it in the comments.